أن يتفرقوا فقال علي عليه السلام إذن والله فزنا وشيتنا ورب الكعبة فقال برسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبين وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضي الله حاجته فقال علي عليه السلام إذن والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة اللهم صل على محمد. سورة المباركة الفاتحة.
Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. We're here today, inshallah, to commemorate the birth of Bibi Zainab alayha salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. May Allah give us the opportunity to do the ziyarah of Bibi Zainab, inshallah, if we haven't had that opportunity. We are, for any of the ladies that might be on the ladies' side, you're more than welcome today to come and join us on the gents' side as well. But if you're comfortable over there, you're more than welcome to sit there as well. We'll broadcast the program there as well. We're very happy. I'm very happy to say that today we have, again, one of our very own, Sister Nazneen, who's going to give the speech for this evening, inshallah. As you all may know, Sister Nazneen has been a very, very active member of this community, along with teaching multiple of our children in madrasa. And so we're very, very pleased and honored to have her here, inshallah. So with a loud salawat, let's welcome Sister Nazneen for our presentation for tonight, inshallah. Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, salawat.
Surah Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى أهل البيت الطيبين الطاهرين. I seek refuge with Allah from the guilty shaitan, and I begin in the name of Allah, the Lord of mercy, the giver of mercy. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, and prayers and peace be upon our Master Muhammad and upon the people of the household, the good and the pure. Please join me with the loudest of your salawat. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Inni yansurkum Allahu fala ghaliba lakum wa in yahzulkum faman zallazi yansurkum min ba'di. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. My respected elders, dearest brothers and sisters, family and friends, I greet you with greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this verse of the Quran that I just shared with you, verse 160 of Surah Al Imran, it is translated to mean, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, if Allah helps you, none shall overcome you. And if He forsakes you, who then can help you thereafter? And in Allah, let the believers trust. Salawat. At the core of this verse, and in dozens of verses of the Quran, is the concept of tawakkul. And tawakkul, reliance on Allah and trusting in His plan, is a fundamental part of our beliefs in Islam. But as I reflect on why we are here today to celebrate the birth of our beloved Lady Zainab, alayhi salam, and Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, and learn some lessons from her life, and then when I think about what we, our community, the world around us, and what many of us have gone through or are going through this year and over the last few years, all of these bring me back to tawakkul and how putting our trust in Him and His plan for us is the only way to get through life. In the good times and the hard times, all of it is Allah's plan for us. But there's something about the hard times, the challenges, the illnesses, the loss. Making it through them and coming out the other side without too many scrapes is only possible by having tawakkul. So today, we are going to think and talk about tawakkul. We're going to see how Sayyeda Zainab alayhi salam's life was such a tremendous example of tawakkul. And then to conclude, I want us to take all of these ideas and lessons and see how they can help us with what we are struggling with, or maybe what we're just pondering over in terms of how we can live our lives as our most authentic selves and discover our true purpose. So with that, I engage your attention and ask for a loud salawat. So we're blessed, alhamdulillah, that the most fundamental aspects of Sayyeda Zainab alayhi salam's life and story are very familiar to us. We remember her every year when we tell the story of Karbala and the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his family and companions. In fact, we wouldn't know the story of Karbala, and we wouldn't be able to commemorate it if it were not for Sayyeda Zainab alayhi salam, the daughter of Imam Ali alayhi salam and Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, and the granddaughter of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. With that lineage, she was clearly born to play the role that she did and make the mark on our history that she did. Bibi Fatima and Imam Ali alayhi salam were waiting for the Prophet to return from a journey before naming her when she was born. And when Bibi Zainab alayhi salam was finally presented to her grandfather, he held her in his lap and he kissed her. And then the angel Jibra'il came to the Prophet and conveyed her name to him. And he began to weep. And when the Prophet asked Jibra'il, "Why are you weeping?" he answered, O Prophet of Allah, from early on, this girl will remain entangled in the tribulations and trials of this world. First, she will weep over your separation from this world. Thereafter, she will bemoan the loss of her mother, her father, and then her brother Hassan. And after all this, she will be confronted by the trials of the land of Karbala and the tribulations of that lonely desert, as a result of which her hair will turn gray and her back will be bent. Upon hearing this, all the members of her family began to weep. After the Battle of Karbala and the martyrdom of her family, Sayyeda Zainab's sermons and speeches to the people of Kufa and in the court of Yazid are searing. The sharpness and the clarity of her words is breathtaking. And it is because of her boldness and fearlessness that people learned the truth about what Yazid had done to Imam Hussein alayhi salam and the Ahlul Bayt. Whatever false joy the people of Kufa were celebrating, she ended it with the glaring light of truth. While I would encourage all of you to read or reread her words, I wanted to point out one of the things that she says to Yazid specifically. Allah commits not injustice to his servants. Our reliance is on Allah. He alone is our relief and place of protection, and in him alone do we repose our hope. What is that? That's tawakkul, right? In the midst of this tragedy of being paraded as a prisoner without her hijab, in a situation that was life-threatening and unimaginable for a normal human being, Sayyeda Zainab alayhi salam's rock, her foundation that she could come back to for strength in the most horrible situation, is tawakkul. Imagine what kind of strength that type of faith gives you. But we don't have to imagine it, actually, not completely. We actually know what she said to Yazid. We know the condition that she was in and what had just happened and was happening around her. We know that it wasn't normal practice at this time for women to be standing up and delivering sermons, and yet she cut Yazid down with words of truth that were sharper than a sword. Imagine what you have to be made of, what kind of faith you must have to be in this position and say to the person responsible for killing your family, and I quote, "You may contrive and try however much you can by him who honored us with revelation, the book, and prophethood. You cannot achieve our status, nor reach our position, nor can you affect our mention, nor remove from yourself the shame and dishonor that is now your lot. Your word now is weak, and your days are numbered." Salawat. this is just a tiny glimpse of what my younger friends would say are the truth bombs that she was dropping, and the dignity in the way she stood up to oppression, lies, and injustice. She was fearless. Because what did she have to fear when she was walking the path of righteousness? And her protector was Allah Himself. Now, while Sayyeda Zainab is an unreachable pinnacle for us, flawed, frail, fallible human beings that we are, I can't help but look at her as an example and marvel at her courage and her strength. She was fulfilling a role that she was born to fulfill. She was answering her call in life. Her family, the angel Jibra'il, they were crying at her birth, at her very birth, because of the trials that she would undergo in this world to do the job that she was sent here to do. And to say it was not an easy job would be a gross understatement. But it was her tawakkul, her complete and unwavering faith in Allah and His plan, among other things, that got her through it. And so I ask you, my dear brothers and sisters, if tawakkul could get Sayyeda Zainab through Karbala and its aftermath, what could it do for us? What can tawakkul do for you and for me? So, let's take this opportunity to explore tawakkul in a little bit more depth. Let's come to understand what is it. It's more than just the definition. So I'm going to quote from multiple sources here, and I'll share a few different explanations that resonated with me. And so this way we can explore the nuances of this concept of tawakkul. Let's start with the source of all sources, our Holy Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He has been quoted as saying, "I inquired from the messenger of revelation, Jibra'il, what is tawakkul?" He said, "Being aware that a creature can neither harm nor provide, nor block others' sustenance from being provided. That you take your eyes off of the possessions of other people. When a servant of Allah has thus transformed himself, he will act only for Allah and will have hope only in Him. This is the truth and definition of tawakkul." That was the direct quote. Now, the word tawakkul comes from the root word wikala, and so by derivation means appointing someone as someone's trustee, or for the Urdu or Farsi or Arabic speakers among us, anybody know what word I'm going to? Vakil. So many of us recognize this word vakil as lawyer or representative in Urdu or Arabic or Farsi. And if we imagine the best qualities that a representative should have, awareness, trustworthiness, strength, sympathy, we can begin to see that it doesn't get any better than putting this type of faith in anyone or anything besides Allah. I want to share this quote about tawakkul from a book of questions answered by the scholar Ayatollah Nasser Mukarram Shirazi, because the entire quote, if you'll bear with me, although it's a bit lengthy, is beautiful in its definition and helping us understand the nuances of the idea of tawakkul. Tawakkul means that a person, in the face of the difficulties of life, wherein they find themselves unable to untie the knots, takes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as their support, but at the same time does not stop their own efforts and endeavors. Rather, in those instances too, wherein they possess the strength to perform the work, they look upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the fundamental influencing force. And then he continues, tawakkul means that a person, in the face of problems, does not experience a feeling of weakness and inferiority, but instead considers themselves victorious by relying on the infinite power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thus, tawakkul is hope-inspiring, energy-instilling, and a reinforcing factor which increases perseverance and resistance. So when we think about these definitions and of Sayyeda Zainab alayhi salam, it's plain to see how she exemplified tawakkul. Even in the most dire of circumstances, she was not weak. She did not cower in fear. She roared because she was the daughter of the Lion of Allah. Subhanallah. The movement of Imam Hussein alayhi salam was led by the voice of Zainab, and the source of her strength and her confidence was her faith and reliance on Allah. As I was researching tawakkul, I did a lot of research, I came across an interesting question that was presented to our scholars, and it asks, is there a contradiction between self-confidence and tawakkul, right? Because in today's world, we're taught to be self-confident and self-reliant and believe in oneself. And that might seem like it's in direct contradiction to this idea of relying solely on Allah. But in the book, Faith and Reason, which contains answers by Ayatollah Mahdi Hadavi Teherani to questions that Muslim youth in the Western world might ask, Ayatollah Teherani explains that one must differentiate between self-confidence and egocentrism. The first, self-confidence, acknowledges that a person has God-given strengths and capabilities. Allah blesses each and every one of us with different strengths, and acknowledging those strengths, being grateful for them, developing them further, using them responsibly, is all a part of self-confidence, and it is in line with Islamic values. We are encouraged to increase our knowledge and share our gifts with other people. This type of self-confidence is in no way counter to the teachings of Islam or tawakkul. But egocentrism, the absence of any concern other than one's own desires, what I alone want will occur. I rely on myself and no one else to give me what I want. I hustle. I make it on my own. I am solely responsible for achieving everything I have today. That kind of swagger, I made it on my own. Imam Ali alayhi salam succinctly sums up the error in this thinking by stating, Whoever trusts in his self will be betrayed many times. Understanding those key differences between healthy self-confidence versus unhealthy egocentricity is key, because as we learned from the definitions earlier, one important aspect of tawakkul is that we try. We put in every ounce of effort and hard work and prayer, but the outcome is up to Allah. And our tests, we've learned that we won't always know when we're being tested. Some of us may be tested with things like wealth or beauty or good health, inshallah. And others will be tested by poverty and illness. Those tests, those are more obvious. But no matter what the test is, how we feel about it, what matters is that we take an active effort and try over and over and over again if necessary. And while this might be easier if we're trying towards something where we're adequately prepared, like Allah is testing me on some of the strengths that He's given me. I'm ready for this job interview. I studied for this exam. But keep in mind that tawakkul, that humility, that we put in every effort, but we still might not achieve what we, the human being, set out to achieve, because the ultimate outcome is with Allah. And while that might be hard to understand when we're in the moment, we might not see why until many years later, or perhaps never. The why is not the point. The submission to His will and trusting in His plan is the point. And in the same manner that we work hard, we try, we struggle when we do feel strong, and that is tawakkul, in the times where we are weak, that the test that has been placed before us is too much to bear. Well, as Rumi, the Persian poet and philosopher, says, when the world pushes you to your knees, you're in the perfect position to pray. Although it sounds difficult, and it is challenging to put it into practice when you're in the midst of those hard times, when you might not have the self-confidence, put that confidence in Allah, that His plan, no matter what the outcome, is the best plan. Salawat. So I actually want to take a small commercial break here. Let's pause for a second and be very candid about how human and how flawed and we all are. And forgive me if I'm stating the obvious, but this tawakkul, trusting in Allah's plan, especially in times of difficulty, is not always easy. And I know that's why the trying times are called tests. They're testing our faith. They're putting our faith to the test. And whatever that test is, it's supposed to be hard for us. It's supposed to be a challenge. But it's a reminder to myself, a reminder to all of us. Let's remember that when we are playing the role of supporting someone else who is going through these tests, and we are supporting them and giving them our reminders, hey, have faith in Allah's plan. Let's make sure we do that with empathy, humility, and compassion. Supporting friends and loved ones in their time of need might be your test. And so one day, when someone asks you and you can tell they're hurting and they look you dead in the eye and they say, really? Illness and pain and dying at a young age are part of Allah's plan? Seriously? Make sure that your answer to that person in pain leans into hope and resilience of tawakkul, but also to the love and the compassion we should show to one another in times of need, and always keep in mind that surely with hardship comes ease. Now, commercial break over. If we go back to looking at Sayyeda Zainab alayhi salam and the story of her life, her contribution to Islam and the Husseini movement, of standing up to oppression and injustice and speaking up for truth and righteousness, in today's language, we might say she was living her purpose. She was living her most authentic self. She was fulfilling a role that she was born and raised to fulfill. There could be no other person on this earth more qualified to do what Sayyeda Zainab did than her. And it was her tawakkul that allowed her to do that. So again, I ask all of us here, if tawakkul empowered Sayyeda Zainab to fulfill this very difficult role and live her life's purpose, could tawakkul do that for us? How can we be our most authentic selves? So now I stumbled into this line of thought, to be honest, of tawakkul and being your most authentic version of yourself, because Kashif and I were listening to a TED Talk one night. He found it. I'm not sure how he found it, but it was so good that we listened to the whole thing, and then we immediately played the whole thing over again. We liked it that much. We're like, we have to listen to this all over again. And I'd encourage and highly recommend all of you give it a listen as well. It's only 26 minutes, and it's called The Art of Being Yourself, and it's by Carolyn McHugh. It has 14 million views on YouTube, and you'll know that you found the right TED Talk if you find someone with the sweetest Scottish accent. So the premise of what she has to share with us is focused on individuality, being the most unique and authentic versions of ourselves rather than pale copies of someone else. So she's studied and she's looked at the most successful people in the world in all types of roles and walks of life. And it's important here to note that successful does not necessarily mean financial success or career or political success. It's just the purest form of success. Did you achieve what you set out to do? And specifically, her talk is not about what you set out to do. This is about how you do it. Whatever it is that you set out to do, are you approaching it in the way that is uniquely you? Now, I would very much love to cover every single point in her talk. In fact, I'd like to play it right now, but I'm not going to. I'm going to share it with you all, and we could have had a big group discussion. That would have been fun. But that was not my assignment, and I'm standing between you all and dinner, so I will not do that. But I will summarize, if you'll bear with me, a few of her key points, because they're exceptionally aligned with what we are talking about in terms of living our lives according to the teachings of faith and living a life that fulfills our purpose, because these are and can be one and the same. Now, according to Ms. McHugh, there are at least 4 versions of you out there in the world, okay? 4 versions. At the very outside, there is the perception. There is what other people think of you. Now, we are super blessed in this audience because as women, as South Asian ancestry people of South Asian ancestry, we have a double dose of this, right? Log kya kahenge? What are people going to say? What are people going to think? So many of us were raised with this constant fear in the back of our minds. What will people think of us? And to bring this idea back to these larger-than-life examples, do you think Sayyeda Zainab alayhi salam was afraid of what people would say about her when she was standing up in the court of Yazid? Probably not. And do you think that that thought ever even crossed the mind of Imam Hussein alayhi salam when he and his companions went to Karbala? What will people think? Of course not. So I would ask all of you, just as I would ask myself, who cares about the look if you are living to please Allah? The next version of you, so the second version of you, is the persona. So this is the version of you that you wish the world would see. It's what you want the world to see. And it keeps changing and growing. And your job with your persona is to get better and better at being yourself. And in her talk, Carolyn mentions that the times in our lives that we're great at being ourselves is when we're children and when we're old and wrinkly. In between, you get a little self-conscious, you get a little less authentic, but it's those outer stages where you can really see the authentic person come out. And as we go through life and we develop our persona, there are what Carolyn refers to as intervals of possibility. But I'm going to call them our tests. There it is again. These are the moments or opportunities or the trials and tribulations that shake us up, and they make us think about what we want to accomplish and how we are going to do that in the limited time that we have on this earth. And the question that she poses to us and that I want to pose to all of you, myself included, is, who do you think you are? And when those tests occur, are you going to show up for them in a way that is aligned with who you think you are? Perhaps, now we're all Californians here, perhaps in the same way that we're taught to prepare for an earthquake by storing up some supplies and running through a practice drill, perhaps we should practice for our tests by strengthening our faith, strengthening our relationship not just with Allah, but with our support system of family and friends, and also our own mental health and well-being. Because are you ready for a time when you will need to tap into those resources? Are we prepared for that? Because as they say in California, don't get caught unprepared when the big one hits. So the last version that Carolyn mentions is your ego. So now your ego is what you think of yourself. And she talks about two extremes. She talks about the times when you think that you are the absolute best thing since sliced bread. I'm awesome, I'm fabulous, I'm on fire. Versus the other times when you feel like burned toast. I can't do anything right. I'm a total loser. Why am I even here? And she mentions that in between those two extremes, there's a point in the middle, an equilibrium of sorts. And that place is the confidence of knowing or being without any outside influence. And she gives this really great example. It's kind of a hard concept to wrap your mind around. But she gives the example of the sky. And she says one day the sky can be beautiful with rainbows and sunshine, and it's glorious one day. And then the next day, it's terrible and dark and stormy and thunderstorms. But the sky is not boasting about its rainbows. Look at how awesome my rainbows are. And it's not apologizing for its thunderstorms. The sky just is. Because it knows that the rainbows and the thunderstorms are all temporary states. And she uses this example to teach us human beings that we should develop a state of mind where we are impervious to the good times and the bad times the way the sky is impervious to the weather. And she calls this humility. And the last quote of hers that I want to share with you is a definition of humility. She says that someone taught her that humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. Give me a loud salawat, and then we will come back to So let's bring all of this together. It almost seems counterintuitive that the way to be more yourself and more authentic is to think less of yourself. To be yourself, don't think of yourself. But, come with me here, if you reflect and take that back to the fact that we humans, we were put here on this earth to fulfill our purpose. And our purpose, if I were to summarize it really, really briefly, is to worship Allah and to serve His creation, right? Fundamentally, worship Allah and serve Him by serving His creation. And how you do this is by being yourself. I have heard, I think I've learned from in this very center, that creatures, they don't have free will. The creatures that don't have free will, like the plants and the animals, they are all worshiping Allah by doing what they were designed to do. So every crawling ant, every breeze through a tree is worship of Allah, which, subhanAllah, if you really think about that, that's beautiful, right? But if you think about that, take that to the next level, we are also creations of Allah. And Allah created us to be human and have free will and make our choices and make mistakes while making those choices. And in Islam, He gave us a framework for redemption when we make those mistakes, to learn and then try and then do better the next time. And, keep going with me, in that framework, we have the constant reassurance of Allah's plan for us, His love for us, His mercy for us, and His interest in what is best for us. So, if we have all of that supporting us in Islam, that is our framework for being in this world, then I ask all of you, what do you have to fear or lose in being the most authentic version of yourselves? After all, you were designed by Allah And you are here as a part of his grand master plan. That's my cue. It's time to wrap up. So the last point that I want to touch on, and I really want to make sure we connect all of these dots that I've forced you to explore with me here today, is this idea of humility when we are facing our tests. Going back to the notion that our tests can be positive and good, or they can be what we consider difficult or negative. Humility is key in both of these situations, and it helps us to remember to have tawakkul. While we can acknowledge and be grateful for the talents and the skills that let us soar through the happiest parts of life, humility will help us remember that none of it, not a single breath, not a beat of your heart would be possible without Allah. Let us all, inshallah, stay humble in our successes and remember who we serve, inshallah. And when we are faced with the situations where it feels like we can't quite climb out of the pit of despair, don't forget to look up at him, but also left and right, and realize that you're not alone. Let us all remember each other and helping each other in our times of despair, and letting other people help us in our tough times, because it actually takes some humility to realize that no, you are not strong enough to go through this by yourself. Even though you might think you can or should be able to be strong enough to go through this, you have people around you who love you and they want to carry the weight with you. So let them. Let us all ask for help, offer help, and remember to ask from the greatest source of strength and help of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I hope that the lessons and the life of Sayyeda Zainab alayhi salam help you to see how important it is to trust in Allah's plan, to have tawakkul even in the most seemingly impossible situations. I hope that her example shows you how one can be humble, yet truly live and shine in fulfilling the role that one was meant to play in this world. And as we reflect on our own lives and being our own authentic selves, I hope we remember Sayyeda Zainab alayhi salam and her unwavering faith in and reliance upon Allah. Thank you so much to all of you and to Sijla for allowing me the opportunity to share my research and my thoughts with you. Anything beneficial that you might have learned about comes straight from Allah, but the mistakes are my own. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات صلوا على بنت علی آج پیدا ہوئے دل و جان زہرا ہے پیدا ہوئے पैगंबर के दिल को है बेहद खुशी, दिलो जान ज़हरब है पैदा हुई। है बिनते अली आज पैदा हुए, दिलो जान ज़हरा है पैदा। शाह करबला की हर हमशीर है, बिरादर उन्हीं को तो शबीर है। खिली अब मोहम्मद के दिल की कली, दिलो जान ज़हरा है पैदा हुए। जनाबे पैगंबर की दाग से जिगर, दो आलम के खुलता के नूरे नज़र। शहंशाह शहंशाह कौनैन की लाडली, दिलो जान राह पैदा हुए। है बिनते अली आज पैदा हुए, दिलो जान ज़हरा है पैदा। अफ़ज़लुस्सलाम अलैक या रसूल अल्लाह मुहम्मदिन व आले मुहम्मद। या नबी सलाम अलैकुम, या अली सलाम अलैकुम। हसनैन व फातिमा पर सलावातुल्लाह अलैकुम। या नबी अलैकुम, या अली सलाम अलैकुम। हसनैन व फातिमा पर सलावातुल्लाह अलैकुम। नूर हक़ में नूर अहमद, सबसे बेहतर सबसे अमजद। हो दुरूद हक़ में बेहद सलावातुल्लाह अलैकुम। या नबी अलैकुम, या रसूल सलाम अलैकुम। हसनैन व फातिमा पर सलावातुल्लाह अलैकुम। या मुहम्मद नाम प्यारा, अर्श पर हक़ ने पुकारा। सच पैगंबर है हमारा, सलावातुल्लाह अलैकुम। या नबी सलाम अलैकुम, या अली सलाम अलैकुम। हसनैन व फातिमा पर सलावातुल्लाह अलैकुम। अफ़ज़लुस्सलाम मुहम्मदिन व आले मुहम्मद।
Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. On behalf of the entire community, we'd like to extend our congratulations on this auspicious occasion of the birth of Bibi Zainab. May Allah, inshallah, give us the opportunity to do her ziyarah if we haven't had that opportunity, and if we have, then may Allah take us there once again, inshallah. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Sister Nazneen, who, as I described earlier, has been a pivotal part of our community. In fact, born and bred here in our community, raised here in our community, and a teacher to many, many of our kids that are sitting here for many years, as well as an active member of our committee. I think the messages today of Bibi Zainab and her tawakkul and her humility, may Allah give us all of those qualities, inshallah. And may Allah continue to give you the opportunity to speak in front of us again, inshallah. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Wa ali Muhammad. On Thursday, inshallah, Uncle Murtaza just reminded me that on Thursday at Ja'fariya, inshallah, there will be a majlis for Auntie Sharbanu's sister who passed away. And so there will be a majlis there, and will be hosted at Ja'fariya for everybody that can make it, inshallah. It will be this Thursday. We will send out an email announcement for that as well. But inshallah, we can all make it there for the majlis on Thursday. Other than that, we will continue to send out reminders for upcoming programs. But we'll end the program tonight, inshallah, with ziyarat, and then shortly thereafter we'll have dinner outside that we hope everybody can participate in. Let's remember all those that used to be with us that are no longer with us. Let's remember all of our family members that are no longer with us. And let's remember all of those that are in need. May Allah protect all of them with Surah Al-Mubarakat Al-Fatiha. Let's finish the program with ziyarat, inshallah.
Let us first recite Aman Yujib for those people who are not feeling well and need help. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Aman Yujibul Mustarada wa yakshifu su. 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 Allahumma salli ala Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum ya Aba Abdillah. Assalamu alaikum ya Ibn Rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum ya Hadith al-Kubra. Assalamu alaikum ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Assalamu alaikum ya Fatima al-Zahira Sayyidati Nisa'i al-Alamin. Assalamu ala al-Hussein wa ala Ali ibn al-Hussein wa ala awladi al-Hussein wa ala ashabi al-Hussein. Khususan Sayyid al-Fajr Abbas ukhtika Zainab. Assalamu alaikum ya Sadati Mawaliya jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum ya Mawla wa ibn Mawla. Assalamu alaikum ya Gharib al-Ghuraba. As-Sultan wal-Hassan Mawlana ibn Musa al-Ridha. وشفينا وشفيع والدي في يوم الجزاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. السلام عليك إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان. أجل الله فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مهرجك وسهور الأمر ورحمة الله وبركاته.
صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله
الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كل وليك حجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا وليا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتؤتيه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
اللهم صل على